I'm Bobby Mulrennan, I play guitar.
My name is Graham O'Brien, I play drums.
I'm Joe Horton, otherwise known as Eric Blair, and we are No Birds Sing.
Some say the cure is worse than the disease, but kindness is mad when he's rested on his knees. And Ludwig's band is a night symphony played with double trombones in a pocket full of speed, stomach full of milkshake, scully full of greed.
The instrumentation in No Birds Sing is kind of pretty much happened by accident. I mean, it wasn't really thought out at first. Joe and I met Graham, and the three of us got together where we just thought it'd be a good way to kind of flesh out some ideas without too many people. And started writing the songs, and it just kind of worked. And when you feel limited in music with your resources, it kind of makes you go dig deeper into your own potential. And it's really created a very cool dynamic.
When you're making a song in the traditional hip-hop way of like sampling some drums, sampling some guitars, you don't necessarily think I have to sample a bass guitar to make the song complete. You can take a guitar player's loop and a drummer's loop, take those two sound files, put them together, and if it sounds full, then your song is finished. You don't think you need to add a bass. So I think that we're just kind of experimenting with the textures, but in terms of my thinking about what I'm playing and about the music, I definitely think of it as hip-hop music.
Yeah, I used to take the question of whether or not we're hip-hop as offensive. The same question of like, well, why don't you guys have a bass player? And I'm like, well, why don't you have a hairstylist? I don't know, we don't have a bass player. But the idea that like defines us as one thing or not, I think at the core what we are is three people that are getting together to make something. And these are the three people that we have. I mean, this is what works for us.
Right now we're trying to write a lot, and with each method you use, you kind of eventually will tap it out. You need to switch to something else. For a lot of them, Bobby and I will just get together over at my place and just record like 3 or 4 instrumental ideas and send those to Joe, and Joe will decide he hates all those. He doesn't want to use any of them. So we'll scrap that approach. And then other times, the 3 of us will get together and just hit record on the computer and just play for an hour and a half. And Joe sometimes will bring ideas to us that he's written on piano. So we're kind of trying to find a really good, reliable way to do it, but right now it's just kind of a hodgepodge of whatever works.
16 landmines, 17 pairs of feet, don't nobody move unless you think you're gonna grow some weed.
I got an MFA in creative writing because I wanted to become a better writer. I wasn't sure that getting an MFA and learning the rules of writing was necessarily going to help me, but what it has done, it's allowed me to trust that my process works. It allows me to trust that when I sit down and I pick up a pen and I put it to paper, something's going to happen. And I may not like it and I'll throw some ideas away, but I know now that something will happen, and I kind of allow that to happen a little bit more naturally. And then also, oftentimes people ask me like, what are my influences in music? And I'll usually list off like 4 or 5 books that I like, because I love music, and it's something that I will continue to do for the rest of my life, either as a hobby or a career. But reading gives you something different, and I really like bringing in those influences too. Writing songs as a band is really interesting too, because you have, I can only imagine it gets worse as the number goes up, but we have 3 individual artists that are all trying to get better at their craft. And then you bring that all together and you're like, all right, now make something that other people are gonna potentially like. And you can't, there's a lot of things to hold in your head. So I think the creative process for us is stripping away some of the things that didn't work, stripping away some of the concerns that are unhelpful to writing a song. And then also honoring what we all wanna be as artists, and trying to do that in some sort of collective fashion. So you literally are throwing 4 or 5 balls in the air and like hoping that you can juggle them. And oftentimes, if you trust yourself and you trust the people that you play music with, it will happen. You will catch them all. But you might drop them before you do. The song Dead Leaves does start out as a love song about boy meets girl, but eventually they get together and then are broken apart. And I think that just speaks to the greatest stories that have been told throughout the ages have been very similar to that. Romeo and Juliet. They don't like get together at the end. If at the end of Romeo and Juliet they kissed, the camera panned back and they walked away, people would feel like they were lying for some reason. Not to say that things always happen bad, but when you break something apart, there's so many more pieces on the inside of it to look at.
Long winter, better in the springtime, cold-blooded sinner in the summer, I'ma make a mind, wanted it to change me, can't nobody save me, left the winter leaves die. It was a long winter, better in the springtime, cold-blooded sinner in the summer, I'ma make a mind, wanted it to change me, can't nobody save me, left the winter leaves die. Sitting by the seaside, I told her I would keep her safe. Saw her as the reaper breaks rock in the sand, make sure her hold hands, take stroll, make plans and change the world into something more beautiful. You know, the usual combo, like who's your favorite author? She's really in the Hawthorne, I'm really in the Chaucer. Eris in the pauper, princess in the pea-brain. She came of her own free will and we sang well into the middle of the night with the fiddle in the mic, just a little bit of light, smell nice like sunshine and daisy chains on my amazing gray skin like silk, hair like wool, street, push, pulled, I pulled and I pushed, took what I could and left what I couldn't fit. Shouldn't it be a little easier to let us sit underneath this Mississippi moonshine? Sweat dripping, listening like new bride. Ain't nobody listening to whispers in the wind, and then the sinner starts to bend in it, a fool's pride. On the other side of the hill, I gotta leave a home that I only started to build. If I gotta die, at least she's gon' live. Baby, I see you when those leaves come in. The war drums are beating on the other side of the hill, and now I gotta leave the home I just started to build. If I gotta die, at least she's gon' live. Baby, I see you when the leaves come.
My intention behind the lyrics were like to have a force that was uncontrollable break them apart. To leave, not necessarily even on a bad note. Like I really tried to leave that song to the point where the guy is leaving the girl and saying, maybe next year this outside force will be gone and we can be together, but he doesn't know. It's exploring what happens when you break apart that question of you have something that's incredible and amazing, but your free will is not the only thing that is accounted for.
Long winter, better in the springtime, cold-blooded sinner in the summer, I'ma make a mind. Wanted it to change me, but can't nobody save me. Left the winter leaves die. It was a long winter, I'm better in the springtime, cold-blooded sinner in the summer, I'ma make a mind. Wanted it to change me, can't nobody save me. Left the winter, left the winter, left the winter leaves die.
I think it's really fair to call the music tense, and I think it's intentional that it is tense. And I think if you're kind of laying back and letting the audience slide, you're doing them a disservice. And that's not really fair, because that's what they're trusting you. When they listen to your music, they are trusting you to provide them with something that is both like high quality and like catchy and they can tap their toes to, but also is of a high quality piece of art. Like they're looking for an experience. I think you just have to be true to yourself and your own approach to it, which for us comes out as like dark and tense, and even though we laugh and joke as people.